Well, we are at about 11:02, giving those folks that are jumping on at the last second an extra minute to do that. But I wanted to say good morning. Thanks for joining this webinar. I'm Bill Montgomery, and I'm the Chief Sales Officer at 1049 The River. And we are excited again to partner with Randy and the team at Gerber that are really bringing in subject matter experts on some things that really matter to business people in this community. And I think we all know the challenges that we faced, and we don't go into that. But if we can all get better, we can continue to press forward in 2021, and that's what we are certainly looking to do. So want to, again, welcome you, say thank you for coming on, and we're very excited to hear what Randy and the team that he has assembled today, as we're going to talk about branding. So thanks for joining us. And Randy, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. So Bill, thanks again for helping with this and promoting this. Really appreciate it, and hope that your audience can get some good nuggets of information. I am Randy Gerber with Gerber LLC. We are a professional service firm that exclusively advises first-generation entrepreneurs. And the ultimate point of what we do is help our clients grow their businesses with purpose. And I could spend a lot of time explaining that, but I'm not going to, because you really want to hear from our two guest speakers today. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves here in a second, both Becca and Megan. But I do want to say something regarding the significance of this conversation, in that, 2020 was a year that forced us all to adapt to change. And very clearly, and if some of you have seen our presentations in the past, I mean, the world changed quite a bit, and certainly within the scope of use of technology and innovation, it's changed for good. And one of the things that I hope our clients do, and I hope most American businesses do, is they make change a choice going forward. So change was forced upon us. We adapted to it. We dealt with it, and a lot of companies did really well. They thrived in that environment. I believe that the rate of change is going to continue and evolve very quickly, and consumer experiences are going to continue to evolve and change as well. And with that in mind, the way you brand your business, the way you promote your business, I think should evolve as well. I don't want to use the word change there, because I think it's an evolution. And so in talking to two of our favorite clients about this, and Megan Shroy and Becca, we agreed to do a joint discussion on this. And so I'm going to let Megan, you're first on my screen. I'll have you go first and introduce yourself, and Becca, you go second, and then we'll take over from there with some questions.
I love it. I'm excited for the conversation. Hi, everyone. Megan Shroy, founder and president of Approach Marketing. We're a PR marketing and communications agency, and we really specialize in partnering with clients of all sizes to help articulate their value proposition and then get those messages in front of the right audience. And we use a variety of strategies and tactics to do that. But I'm really excited to have this conversation as it relates to what Randy just mentioned, which is brands evolving post-COVID. And that's something that we're seeing across all of our client accounts. Some that, to your point, Randy, have done really well in this new environment, and others that are struggling to get a foothold, and what they can do now, and practical strategies and tactics for planning for 2021 and beyond. So excited to join the conversation.
Thanks. And Becca?
Hi, I'm Becca Apfelstadt, co-founder and CEO at treetree. We're a marketing and advertising agency here in Columbus. We support primarily large organizations, what we call B2B giants. So we work with organizations like Nationwide and Cardinal and JP Morgan Chase. And we are in their marketing teams almost as an extension of their marketing team, helping them bring their marketing strategies to life and solve those challenges, often on fast deadlines, and responding to the needs that they have that are really unique in a B2B environment. But as an entrepreneur, it's really important to me that we always have seats at our table for clients that are smaller businesses where the business owner is still involved in those conversations and discussions. I really personally enjoy that. So we tend to have at least a couple of exercises each year where we're helping organizations go through the rebranding process and go through the process of making those bold and courageous decisions to pick something and own it in the marketplace, which is what branding is all about in focusing. So I'm excited to hopefully provide you with some inspiration to be brave and bold and lean into the things that make your brand unique and pick that point of focus. It's something I've personally been diving into myself. 12 years in as a business owner, where's treetree now? 2020 shook us all up, even those who do branding. So we've been looking at our own positioning in the market and our own focus and trying to decide where do we go from here and how do we want to evolve? So this is all very top of mind, very recent for me personally. And so if you're in that boat, kind of considering those things and asking yourself those questions, you are not alone. So thanks for having me.
So thanks, Becca. And that's a really great segue to my first question, because, looking at who's in the room on the screen, all of us are concerned about developing revenue, and not only developing and growing revenue, but as many of you heard me say in the past, high quality revenue. And so there's, to the average entrepreneur, there's this branding issue, there's a marketing issue, and there's public relations. And I'll start with you, Becca. Can you define very succinctly exactly, what is a brand strategy, and why is it important? And then Megan, I'm going to ask you the question regarding how does PR fit into that right after that. So just, Becca, if you could start with, what is a brand, what's a strategy, and why is it important?
I think sometimes as humans, it's easier to start with things are not. We have more language around that. So your brand is not your logo. It's not your brand guidelines document. It's not a set of corporate identity program and color palette and rules and regulations around how you use it. Those are all assets and tools that we use to guide the management of the brand, but that is not what it is. The brand is really the sum of the reputation. It's the good, the bad, the ugly. It's all of the things that people are experiencing about your company, your service, your product, all wrapped into one. And it's not the important thing that I think everybody needs to really pay attention to. It's not just what you say it is, it's what they say it is. And so we can't know exactly how that brand is defined if we're leaving out a very important audience, which is who we're trying to talk to and what the market thinks. So a strategy is really that studying. It's the thing you arrive at. It's the path to competitive advantage that you've landed on after you've studied the market and you've understood how to emphasize your differences. Picking a brand strategy is about eliminating things. It's about saying of all the things we could tell the whole wide world, we can't say everything. We can't be everything to everyone. We will dilute the message. We will spend way too many dollars. We will make Megan and Approach PR's job way too difficult. We will drive our team nuts, and we will not be able to deliver. It's a recipe for disaster. So if we can say one thing, what's the one thing we can say that is different, relevant, and believable? And those are the three criteria that we talk about a lot at treetree as whether or not we've nailed a brand strategy for a focus.
Perfect.
But yeah. So.
And so Megan, now, so somebody has developed a great brand and brand strategy. Talk to the group about public relations and even, way Becca said at the beginning with, sometimes you guys talk about what it isn't, so.
Right.
So public relations and marketing, what's the difference? How's it work? And how important is a brand as it relates to that?
Well, as Becca mentioned, it's keenly important because once we get to the step of PR and marketing, that's what we're communicating out, right? Those messages. And so we need to make sure that, to Becca's point, we have a really succinct message that's tailored to our target audience and that's going to be memorable. And then when we get to the step of PR, we're communicating that out to those audiences. And we do that to shape reputation and decision-making. And so we're going to ask you first and foremost, who is that target audience? And what do we want them to know, feel, and do? And then we use a variety of PR tactics, be it media relations or social media, a number of strategies to help communicate that. But I think you're really taking a step back, thinking through how you're positioning yourself across what channels is the best place to start. And that, comes into, what you stand for, what's that promise that you make, what's the personality that you want to convey. And that's for your business, but then it's also for you, the owner and the spokesperson of that business, because your brand, your company is going to have a brand, but we talk a lot about what's your personal brand, because we know that customers, they want to work with a company that they trust. And the way to convey that trust is through a human. And so there's kind of two aspects of it in that, your brand is going to align with your company, and then your brand is going to align with you as an individual and as an owner as well.
So as it relates to public relations and marketing, is it safe to simplify that PR is what others say about you and marketing is what you say about yourself, or is that not inaccurate?
I think we're blurring the lines a little bit, right? And marketing is a big, robust term. And, this industry is evolving so fast in that we have a number of channels to get your marketing messages across. PR is one of those. There's digital marketing. There's traditional advertising. All of that is going to roll up under the marketing umbrella. But yes, in a lot of ways, when we think about PR as a discipline, it's definitely shaping the way that folks think of you. And we do that, primarily leaning on the media and third-party credibility.
So, all right. So this is not on the agenda I have, so I'm going off script, guys. But
I love it.
So there's two questions. The first for Megan, you just said something that's really interesting regarding how is PR and marketing changing, evolving now in the 2021? And then Becca, my follow-up question after she's done to you is going to be, developing a brand, has that process evolved and changed? And should people be thinking about the development of a brand differently? So Megan, let's go with like the theme that you just kind of stumbled upon there.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's, kind of even take a look back before 2020, 15 years ago, before the onset of social media. PR in general was folks getting their news, and they primarily did it through, reading the newspaper, listening to the radio, watching the evening news. Well, then there was the onset of the digital revolution, and suddenly the majority of folks are getting their news from other sources, be it their social media feeds, websites that they visit on the regular, blogs, etc. And so when we think to 2020 and all that happened amid COVID, again, folks have kind of shifted in the way that they, receive their news and recommendations from products and services. And we saw this in the explosion of social media because people were at home scrolling their phones and they were in front of a screen more than ever. And companies really had to shift and think about the ways that they were relying on those, robust platforms to get their messages out there and to cut through the clutter because it was crowded. And what does that mean? It means we have to think through, how we're going to advertise on those platforms, because the algorithms have shifted as such that if we're going to be a part of those conversations, we're probably going to have to pay for eyeballs.
Got it. So Becca, with all this evolution and change and innovation we're having, the actual development of brand. One of the questions is on here is, how does a company define a brand? I think that's important to ask. But even with that, then I guess, is the process different now, or should there be additional considerations? How has the experience of 2020 changed the brand development process, if at all? Maybe it hasn't.
Yeah, I think a lot of what goes into defining the brand and developing it is the foundation, the stuff that's always been there that is important. It's who we're talking to, what we do, and why it matters. Those are critical questions to be asking, and they'll change over time. What the audience needs from us as a brand will change. What we offer, the market will change. What competitors are offering is going to change. So brands and marketers have to be on top of how that evolution is happening. 2020 was like putting the foot on the accelerator, and we just went warp speed and everything fast forwarded a couple of years worth, it felt like. And so I don't think those basic foundations change, or the questions we need to be asking, or the key points that we need to hit have changed, but the iterative process has changed. Technology has made it easier to get a message out quickly. And a phrase that we like to use at treetree is, let's make it not perfect, but perfectible. You know, like, let's get something and get it out there and get a response, and we can always tweak and iterate and get reactions and move as the market is moving. If we're waiting for it to be aligned, and you know, the organization, sometimes there's layers and there's things you have to go through to get approvals. And if you're going to wait until the 300-page brand guidelines document is all tied up with a bow, you've lost the audience. Your market's different already. So it's important to do those foundational things, do them well, not skip the steps, do them consistently, but make sure that you are iterating and getting things out there.
That's such a good point. Just one other caveat on that, Randy, is in today's digital world, it's really easy to test and fire a small bullet to see how a message resonates. So to Becca's point, it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's get a message out there, test with a small target audience, and see how it responds. And then we can tweak and go broader. And with many of the strategies that we're talking about, you can do that very, very easily in today's digital world.
So go ahead, Becca.
I was just going to say, so many dollars have been converted to digital, and brands are taking advantage of that. And I don't think that that is going to change either. I think that's one of the impacts that COVID had. We were headed there, but we fast forwarded, you know, a couple of years worth of making that piece of the pie that used to go to other tactics now live in digital, and it's not likely to go back to other areas of spend.
So in light of where, you know, the world's been with COVID and with the heated political environment we've had, should your brand be reflective or accommodative to that? I mean, should your brand or messaging address the current state of the union, if you will, and where we are? Or is it something that you stick to your brand and that's it, and let the rest of the outside world keep moving along?
I think it's very, very specific to the situation. What you should be doing is asking the question, is it necessary for me to have an opinion on this? And coming out of COVID and 2020 in general, be it the political unrest and a variety of other hot topics that were in the news, that was something we were talking to our clients about in real time. You know, when COVID first hit, we said, communicate, communicate, communicate. If your title is, you know, CEO, that should be Chief Empathy Officer. You should be communicating to your clients in real time every day. And you should be communicating to your internal folks every day as well. You know, when we then came to Black Lives Matter over the summer, everyone wanted to make a statement. And in some cases, it made sense to make a statement. And in some cases it didn't. And it was just crowding the marketplace. So, you know, the same thing goes with what's to come, and who knows what's to come. But the first thing that you should ask yourself is, you know, should I be a part of this conversation? And to really take a thoughtful approach to that, rather than just throwing something up there because you're seeing everyone else do so.
And go back to one of those foundational questions, is it believable? Because if you are one of the brands that is writing a message about racism and the audience does not receive it as something that is authentic and believable, that you as a leader and you as a leadership team and you as a brand and you as a company really wholeheartedly embrace, they will see through it in an instant, and you will get chewed up and spit out on social and all the channels. And the brands that are empathetic and genuine are going to be rewarded with loyalty more this next couple of years than we've seen.
I completely agree.
The empathy aspect is really a big thing to be paying attention to, and authenticity.
Well, and going back to defining your brand, and the question you were asking Becca earlier, Randy, you know, your core values are part of that. And we need to go back to those core values when we're, you know, thinking through communicating on certain subjects and making sure that they are aligned. Because just like we're saying, there's room in this marketplace for imperfected communication. that's where the authenticity plays into that. And so if it's authentic and something that really aligns with your core values and who you are as a business, then the message is yes, go and speak. But if not, you're cluttering the marketplace with conversation that is inauthentic, and it can really turn on you.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing you both say, with, by the way, a lot of enthusiasm, the energy level ticked up a notch here with that set of questions, which is terrific. What I am hearing you both say is that, you know, all of us as entrepreneurs, we have to get really good at communicating regularly with all of our stakeholders. So COVID and the political environment has forced us into this, that you know, people expect you to communicate and be authentic and be genuine and have an opinion, but we're going to have to all get good at this. Is that what I'm basically hearing you say?
Yes. And if you're not good at it already, you're behind.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not comfortable with it already, you're really behind.
I think consumers in general expect more out of brands now than ever. And we saw that trend last year. And it is, you know, related to the way that we receive messages being so real time and so frequent, and the fact that some brands are doing this really well. And consumers are used to getting those messages and really, you know, becoming advocates. And, you know, as we talk about the marketing funnel, moving beyond now I'm a customer of the brand to I'm a loyal advocate of them. I'm putting their messages out on behalf of them. And that happens because they're, you know, really bought in. And the way you do is by communicating with them in a real, authentic and frequent way.
And when you have a mistake, that you own it in an authentic way. And the apologies that we saw in certain cases over 2020, or owning those oops moments, how those things were handled mattered a lot more, as they do in any human interaction.
Absolutely. And in any, you know, business interaction. I just shared on social media an example of a brand that made a mistake. And it was a ski brand out west that were, you know, booking reservations for skiing, and they had bad customer service. And the CEO just came out and said they dropped the ball. And the support that CEO received for acknowledging their mistake was so much better for, you know, pushing their credibility just by being authentic and saying, I'm trying to get this right. You know, things are moving faster than we ever anticipated. And I think people like to see that right now too, right? They want to know that you're not perfect, and they're willing to say, okay, you made a mistake.
So talk to me about this. So, you know, what I'm hearing you both say, again, with enthusiasm, which I appreciate, is that consumers expect communication. They expect authentic communication and regular communication. So I think we all understand how a big company, a large company with lots of resources, and when I say resources, I mean time resources, people resources, and financial resources. I understand how they can deliver on that, but how does a small company do it? I mean, like, you know, how does a small company, where you're really thinking about deployment of capital into hiring a new person, or really becoming, what's the word Becca used there? I don't know, was it comfortable, but an expert at communicating? I forget the word you used, but I mean, it's a small company. What's that?
I said comfortable. Mm-hmm.
Okay, comfortable. Yeah, it's a small company. That's intimidating. So, like, how does a small company do that? How do you compete? How do you compete with those large companies with more resources?
Yeah.
It's a great question. And, you know, for me, the first thing that comes to mind, and as a small business owner, I can very much relate to limited resources, right? And I'm sure Becca feels the same when oftentimes, you know, we think about ourselves last from a marketing communication standpoint. But I know one thing that everyone can do is be planful in a communication strategy. And that is simply taking a step back with your key leadership and saying, you know, what does the month ahead look like? What does the quarter ahead look like? And what messages do we need to put out? And again, these are going to come through in a variety of ways. It could be, you know, a e-newsletter that you're sending out to your clients. It could simply be a post on social media a couple of times a week, or it can be, you know, really a thoughtful communication strategy where we're rolling in, you know, media relations and speaking engagements and a variety of other strategies and tactics. everyone can have a plan, and it can be a simple content calendar that you put together for your company that says, here are the messages that we're going to push out week by week. And, then you do rely on someone in that marketing seat, either in-house or outsourced to an agency, to put those messages out on your behalf.
And I would say, to add on to that, that is even more effective, and it's even better if there has been that pre-work, that foundational work where you have done, whether it's internal, back of the envelope, contacting some of those key stakeholders and asking questions, finding out in a qualitative and a quantitative sense, whether you're tracking your NPS score over time, whether you're, I called 5 to 10 top clients and asked them, what do you think of treetree for that you can't get anywhere else? What are we really, really good at? If we went away and fell off the face of the earth, what would be missing? What hole would we leave in your organization? And the answers to that and the consistency across those clients and their answers gave me not only confidence, but language to put around this kind of sweet spot we were honing. And it aligned with some of our gut instincts, but it also helped us eliminate some language. It helped us understand what type of personality to put behind it that was going to be received really well. And then we can go find other organizations like them and prospect. So everything gets more strategic. Every dollar makes more sense. Otherwise, you're just kind of guessing. So doing those things and spending the money, and I would venture to say that is not best done by just the one. If you're an entrepreneur and you have one person in the marketing seat, they are not often the person that can come up with the marketing strategy and execute on all the tactics. It's not fair to make that an all-in-one. You need some partnership and collaboration and outside perspective sometimes. So we're often brought to the table and along with an organization like Approach to help with the execution, but at that early stage of thinking through those foundational elements. And it can be a big help. Then you have this document to walk around with in this strategy, and you build all the tactics and plans off of that, and everyone goes back to it. Is it on strategy? Is it on strategy? And then everything, just becomes that much easier. But it doesn't have to be a crazy big investment and expensive endeavor. It doesn't have to take months and months and tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, what I did took a week, and it was 20-minute calls, but it made our message stronger and better for doing it.
So you opened the door to a question that's, again, not on our script, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Can small businesses effectively measure return on investment around all these activities? Not just dollar spend, but time spent. Is it practical to expect to do that or not?
I think it's absolutely practical, and I think it's expected. And any agency that you partner with, or any internal person or team sitting in that marketing seat, should be talking about measurement. In today's day and age, marketing is measurable, and assigning those KPIs up front to every strategy and tactic, and then measuring, the effectiveness of each and every one of them, is part of our job and should be part of your marketing team's job. And it all boils down to, what are we trying to accomplish? Right. And yes, some things are more measurable than others, but everything should be measurable.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Even if it's awareness that you're trying to get at,
Absolutely.
we have an awareness problem. Okay, well, how are we going to measure that? There are ways to do it, but you have to identify that up front.
How do companies know they have an awareness? So this, going back to the script a little bit here, how do you know you have an awareness problem?
Well, that's part of the process of diving in and going through. I mean, when you start to do this kind of brand audit and go through and look at all of the stakeholders and everything, we help organizations identify when that's the problem. Okay, we can't get to the marketing plan yet, or we're not ready to start promoting all of these, things that you've got all these ideas about. They don't even know you exist, or you are so overshadowed and over, this competitor is just clobbering you on spend, that we have to start here first. So getting guidance on that can be helpful. Or you have no awareness in that segment, but over here, you've got this band of followers that you didn't really realize, and let's tap into them more. So those are things that are uncovered in that initial discovery process, in how we work with our clients, at least.
Yeah, I would also say one of the areas where we really probe is with sales. And we really want to understand, what does your sales cycle look like? And I want to talk to your sales reps and say, where are you getting your leads? Because if they say, the only place I'm getting leads is from, existing clients or referred in, we probably have an awareness issue, right? So that's an automatic red flag for me. So I think that's a really good place to start, is your sales folks are on the front lines. They're the ones picking up the calls or the phones and cold calling when someone's never heard of you. So that's an easy place to kind of start and understand, what is my brand awareness in the market?
Yeah.
So thank you. This is terrific. Becca, I want to go back to something you said a second ago, and I just realized we didn't really address this, but what I think I'm hearing you say is that the real first step before you do anything here is to do a brand audit. And before you can develop a brand, you got to do a brand audit. And so like sequencing, I think I'm hearing you say, both of you do a brand audit, you develop your brand, which is develop a brand strategy, and then from there you go into your marketing and your PR. Is that
You're spot on. You're spot on.
And in the audit process, we would include a variety of stakeholders. So Megan mentioned sales. Absolutely. Who are those internal key stakeholders who hold the keys to the insights about how decisions get made by their prospects and how things get done in the organization? And then we look at potentially even lost prospects. We've found a lot of great insights by calling up the deals that you lost. Mm-hmm. And you'll be surprised how many of them will talk to a third party. Mm-hmm. And getting insights that way. You didn't lose because of price. You lost because you didn't show your value enough, or you talked too much about yourself and not about the solution that was going to solve their problem. So there's insights that can come from there, and then of course from the people who love us, and talking with the current customers and the advocates, and within that, breaking it out and even talking with some that are newer. So a customer that's been with you only so much time, and then more loyal ones, and noting the differences between the two, because they're at different stages of being in love. This is a relationship.
Got it. So Megan, can you ever effectively market or promote a crappy brand?
Well, you absolutely can, but you're just going to miss the mark. And we see companies do this all the time. And I think Becca said earlier, and a super smart comment was, hone in on that value proposition. And we really think about what makes me different from my competitors. Why do I deserve your business? And that is what that brand strategy is founded upon. And that's what we're going to push when we communicate your message out, because that's how you're going to cut through the clutter, is by getting the right message in front of the right audience at the right time.
Got it. So when Becca, when you're helping a company, so you've gone through the brand audit, and you understand where the history has been. How often do you have to have companies redo their core purpose and their value proposition and identify their target market? How often do they have to make a wholesale change?
We've recommended that in a couple of instances where it felt just so outdated or so generic, where they had something more with more personality and more finesse than they were giving themselves credit for. And they had the list of core values that were written on the integrity, respect, all the typical ones. And they were not imaginative, and they weren't things that the internal audience was connecting with, because that's a part of the brand too. Getting the internal teams aligned on the brand is a big part of it. So if we find that there's a disconnect there between what's attracted these people who are now having to project this brand out and provide that experience to the customer, and what's going on, externally, that might be a recommendation we make. But it's not it's not like a wholesale every time by any means. We try to preserve what's there and not assume we know better, than the owner that came in, and work with what we have as the foundation. Because you can really, it's like a ball of yarn there, and you can get into a lot of stuff that needs redone, and that's not always the best use of resources.
So I'm going to ask this question to both of you with slightly different twists, and Becca, you have to go first with it. When you're developing a brand and brand strategy, how much does the competition matter to you?
It matters a lot, I think, to pay attention to what's going on, because those are the alternatives and the choices. And to pick a strategy is about deciding how you're going to be different. And I think that's why it's really important to stay on top of how it's changing. And otherwise you can very easily come off like a Me Too brand. And if you study that, you don't know, or you can put dollars into it and you actually drive people to the other brand, and you don't even know you're doing it, because you're pumping the message out there that raises their boat too.
That's interesting. And so Megan, the same question asked differently, is that how important is understanding your competition when you're marketing and promoting a brand?
Echo what Becca said when it's integral. And I always say, start with your top 3 competitors. And you can think of those in your local market, or you can think of those nationally. Start with your competitors, and then look at aspirational brands too, and see what they're doing that you like and you don't like, and really start to document out a matrix of your findings. Because I don't care, and I've seen it with small startups, and I've seen it with Fortune 50 companies. Marketing dollars are limited in all cases, and we want to make sure we're investing in the strategies and tactics where we can break through. So for an example, when you do that audit and you look at your competitors and you say, gosh, my 3 biggest competitors are spending all of their dollars on traditional advertising. Maybe I wouldn't recommend traditional advertising then, because you're really going to start to blur those lines. So it's going to give you insight into what your message should be, but it's also going to give you insight into where you should spend your marketing dollars.
So no matter how special you might think you are as a business, and this is one of the issues I see with smaller companies and entrepreneur-led companies, that no matter how special and different you think you are, you always have to consider your competition. I'm hearing you both say with a high degree of enthusiasm, right?
Yes.
And understanding how we can be different and communicate differently. We say this all the time when we're talking to clients in the new business process. If you have heard one agency's capabilities presentation, you've kind of heard them all. So we're going to try and be very different when we come in. And the same goes with all of your customers. I don't care if you're B2B or B2C. Folks have heard from companies like you. So how are you going to be memorable? What do you want them to know, feel, and do? And how do we communicate that quickly and effectively?
Got it. So as business owners, I'm reading literally one of your questions. It's the first time I'm doing this, but this is one of your questions. As business owners, we're often much more focused on sales versus marketing. Help us understand how marketing and sales fit together.
Yeah, I think that this, believe it or not, is very confusing to most business owners, is how do marketing and sales play nice? And I think one of the easiest ways to think through this is to, again, think about that funnel, that marketing funnel of, I've never heard of you before, and then I have brand awareness, and now I'm moving down to intent to make a purchase, making a purchase, and loyal advocate of your brand. Marketing's responsibility should be feeding the top of that funnel. Sales should be moving them through it and closing. And when we talk to folks, business owners, about how marketing and sales should play together, I want to talk to sales and understand what they're not getting from marketing, and I want to talk to marketing and understand what they're not getting from sales, because those two, facets of your business should be in lockstep.
I will add to that as well and say that one of the things we're noticing out of the pandemic is that there is greater collaboration and there is greater want from sales to bring marketing to the table, and that's been very welcomed. There has been more ask of marketing to help drive growth and not just build the website and let sales go do its thing, but there's been a lot more conversation happening. We actually wrote a white paper and did a lot of interviews with top marketers, and they echoed that sentiment and really expanded upon that, and how much more effective they're finding the limited dollars that they have can be. Some of that's driven by the trend towards account-based marketing and getting really specific to try to target individual organizations and follow them around. And some of it is just the nature of, we're in crisis and let's all help each other because everything's feels scary.
Absolutely. And so often when we come in, especially with small business, and we're beginning this assessment process, we hear from sales, oh, marketing just makes it pretty, right? Like we're doing the work and then marketing makes it, look good. And that's a tremendous red flag if that is happening in your organization. Marketing should be sales' best asset. They are, driving leads for the salesperson to close, in addition to doing all of the awareness building. And really a critical part of the sales function is having that marketing out front.
That's interesting. Marketing should be the sales' best asset. And that's a thought that I think is probably lost on most small businesses, most entrepreneurs. They don't really, the way you guys are, makes total sense, right? But marketing should be sales' best asset. And that's interesting, very interesting.
And talk to your sales folks, and they're gonna give that insight too, because they want those leads, right? Those are leads that they don't have to drum up themselves. And every good salesperson hates drumming up leads more than any other part of the process.
And if the marketing strategy is right, they are the best qualified leads.
So and how much easier is it to close a sale if they already know your value proposition, right?
Yeah. So this is a relation to one of the questions you guys put down here, and I'm going to ask it a couple different ways. And it's we talked a little bit about how branding is different for 2021 already, and then there's how is branding different for specific business categories, and then I'm going to ask the next question, and really is both separate, and how is branding different for small businesses versus larger businesses, and how is marketing and sales different for small businesses versus big businesses? So Becca, just, with branding, how is it different for specific business categories, and what should it could be specific on what categories you're referencing?
I don't know that there's a ton of difference, because it's like that, it's that foundational process, and it's the same things. And that process stands for small, large, or whatever the industry is, B2B, B2C. So I can't say I see a ton of differences there. But I think for the small business owner, it's a lot more personal. And so we find that it can be sometimes harder to get alignment on saying no and shedding the other things and picking something. And Randy, I want to give you props here. As a marketer and a person who's started in brand strategy in my career, I've always had great respect for your position. And it's one of the things that made me very interested in having you be my advisor. You very clearly defined, for me, I'm a first generation entrepreneur, that you have built your service for me. And everything is aligned to that. You've done an excellent job. You're a great example of a small business owning a position and doing it differently. There are so many financial advisors out there, and I get pinged all the time by people who want my business, but they don't say what you say. And so I don't believe them, even if they have tons of experience with first generation entrepreneurs. I don't believe them in the same way. Mm-hmm. So the personal nature of it sometimes makes it harder to get them to really commit. It's like stepping off the ledge. I have to part with things. I have to not say this in order to only say this. And that's hard as humans, and owners have a hard time with that. It's easier for a marketing team to objectively look at something and say, yeah, this is the right strategy, do it. It's not my money, and it's not, my name on the door.
I was just going to say, sometimes it's easier to not have the owner in the first rendition of that conversation. We are our Achilles heel here, because I want to work with everybody, right? I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a visionary, and I can help every single person out there. So sometimes in taking that perspective out of the room to begin to hone in on who that target audience really is can be helpful and a strategy that we recommend. And then of course, ownership is going to come in and hear that. But you're absolutely right. You can't be everything to everyone. And sometimes we have to push to drill down.
Yeah. And that's
So-
just in the messaging. So here's the other thing, like you're in control. Every business owner on this call is in control. You can market. Randy can decide, yeah, I'm first generation entrepreneur as the outward facing message. And someone can come in over the transom and he can say, sure, you don't fit the normal bill, but you're a great person, or you're my friend or my buddy or whatever, and I'm going to help you. But it can't be part of the marketing message that you're also accepting clients, because you've just diluted everything. And now you're making it harder for anyone to understand anything about you.
100%. And it's too expensive.
I will say on that topic, Becca, what's interesting is, and I understand why you're saying that, but I'll tell you that the audience, it gets frustrated. I think in 10 years, we've made 2 exceptions to our rule. And my biggest pushback's my team. They're like, what are you doing? Oh, hold on. This doesn't make any sense. And yeah, right. And so, yeah, it's not worth it.
Yeah, it's not worth it. And just keep in mind, you're wasting money on the front end, right? You're not making more money by bringing in that client. It's too expensive. We say all the time, you can't boil the ocean. Take your limited marketing dollars and focus it on, the best area to bring clients that are the most profitable fit for your business. And profit does play into that, Randy, which we've talked a lot about, is looking at who are you most profitable working with, because there's a really good starting point on who we should be marketing to.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously, I guess we haven't explicitly said it till right now, but all the foundational matters that Becca mentioned regarding building a brand and then you messaging that brand. One thing 2020 clearly taught us was that every single dollar of revenue must drop not only profit to your bottom line, it's also got to drop liquidity into your business balance sheet that's transferable to your personal balance sheet. And when you start using that lens, it really does force you to be disciplined around taking, every dollar of revenue has got to have a clear direction to end up on a liquidity on your personal balance sheet. And the word no will become more and more ubiquitous in your language when you're who you won't take. So, all right. So we'll do questions in a second. And so if you guys have questions, please start formulating them and send them to Annie, and Annie will feed them to us. But before we do that, this is maybe just a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyways, because I think business owners need help and direction around what to do, because it's a confusing world. But Becca, I'm asking the same question to each of you guys, but Becca, I'll go first. What's the one thing that you think entrepreneurs should do with their branding strategy right now? Like, in light of where we've been with 2020, the political environment, the health environment, and where we're going, what do you think is the one thing entrepreneurs should do right now?
Get close with your best customers and find out how you're doing. Get that insight. Insight matters a lot. And to go back to the point about communicating often and expressing that empathy, asking those questions, calling them up out of the blue with no other agenda, not getting, the time on the calendar. Spend that time as the owner, and it impacts not only the relationship you have with them, but it gives you insights into how you're positioned. And you'll get really candid. I mean, I had pages and pages of notes from just doing that simple exercise. We've done it more formally as a business, where we've actually paid an outside person to do a whole, study for us on our clients. But this was just me back of the envelope, and I got so much out of that. So I would recommend that as a starting place. It's simple, it's easy, and it gets you connected with your most important customers.
Great. Megan?
My answer would be, the world has changed so much in the last 12 months, and we are seeing a lot of innovation coming out of 2020. I would take a moment with your leadership team to say, how has our audience changed? in the way that they are buying, and how do we need to shift as a company to meet them there? And, I have dozens of examples of how our clients are doing this right now, but I think, in January 2021, this is an integral conversation that you need to be having with your leadership team.
Got it. Okay, so first question, Andy, looks like I have them, at least I think I do, is from John Cadlick. So he's trying to be difficult, looks like, but the question is, with COVID still front and center in society and all the daily news for understandable reasons, how can a small business find a way to get their story out in the world in an effective way right now?
I'm happy to take that. John and I have actually talked about this. It has been the most challenging media landscape that I have ever seen in my career. And getting your message out, if you do not have a tie-in to COVID right now, is very, very difficult using media relations. So if you are a small business, investing in media relations and going at that alone without a rock star PR team behind you is not a good strategy right now. I would say taking a step back and thinking through, getting my story out using a different medium. And that can be using LinkedIn. It can be using other social media. It can be using traditional advertising. It can be using pay to play media. There's so much sponsored media right now where you can buy an article that looks completely editorial, but you're paying to place it because the newsrooms have shrunk. There's less reporters to call on. And if you don't have personal relationships with those reporters, it's going to be hard to get your story out using media relations right now.
Interesting. Very good. This is probably for you, Becca. Melody Warner's asking, please explain what a marketing audit is. I get the general idea, but would like more of a breakdown.
Yeah. An audit is part of a discovery process. And what we're usually seeking to understand is everything we can know about the product or service, who uses it, what makes it different. We'll ask a lot of questions in a kickoff meeting with some key stakeholders. And then we'll get into the target audience. We'll want to understand and talk with them through a variety of means. That could be qualitative or quantitative information gathering, social listening, doing anything we can to get to know that target. We look at the competitive environment and really kind of the landscape of where things are headed in the industry. So it's taking this kind of narrow look at what we can control in the macro, what's going on in the world, and putting them together. And also taking data and information from inside your organization. We might ask for reports and financial, sales information, trends. There's data that you may not have looked at. Randy does this to me all the time. He'll ask me for stuff and then take two pieces of information, put them next to each other, and I have an insight I haven't thought to look at that way. So our job is to help you take some of those sales information, those marketing KPIs, and look at them in a new way and hopefully provide some insights that give you some ahas and help us make sure that we're eliminating the guesswork. If we do that step and we invest in that the right way, then we're not guessing when we get to the part that Megan, is so skilled at, and we're getting the message out there.
Excellent. Great answer. So this question's, wait for the final sentence. This is it makes the context important. Carol Gonzalez is asking, there are so many things we can be doing as business owners: Facebook, website, blogs, Instagram, Clubhouse, Twitter, writing letters to our network, attending virtual events, etc. What should we be focusing on in your first year of owning your own business that would make the greatest impact?
Mm-hmm. I can start with this one. And I would say taking a step back and talking again, as Becca mentioned, to your best clients and understanding where are they receiving recommendations for your products and services. And this is going to be different for every single business. But if you're marketing to moms, maybe they're paying attention to mommy bloggers. If you are, marketing to other business owners, maybe they are reading Simply Business First. But talk to your customers, understand where are they paying attention and getting those recommendations, and then focus only on that. Because you don't have the resources or the time in year one in business to do everything. So we say start with the low-hanging fruit. And to Becca's point, that is, the best way to get those insights is by talking to your customers, and they'll give it to you.
So this has been terrific. I've really enjoyed doing this. And one of my takeaways today that I hope everybody heard is the Chief Empathy Officer. I think that's so critical, and to really understand that in your organization. And one of the dynamics of owning a business is, in my opinion, if you're the shareholder of the company or the primary shareholder of the company, it's your responsibility to make sure the culture of the business is what it should be, and you're the steward of the culture. And clearly, one of the things that 2020 rocked us, I guess I'm going to say every business, was it tested your culture and where you are. And so I'm so fond of Becca and Megan. We're going to talk again on February 10th, and we're going to talk about culture in your business. And I won't let the cat out of the bag here, but both Megan and Becca have made really deliberate decisions, and I would say innovative, maybe aggressive decisions around how they're managing their culture. And so I think in light of their own experiences, they put a stake in the ground, and also dealing with the reality of our situation, which in my opinion continues to evolve and continues to be a moving target. I was with my team last week, three of my team members last week, working on some special projects out of Columbus. And the last 20 years, I don't remember talking politics the way we talk politics every single night. And the recognition when I got home was, wow, our culture is changing. And it's because this is a hot topic for the most important people in my business life, is our team, let's deliver our service to our clients. So tune in, pay attention to our promotions and information. I thought today was terrific. I learned a lot. I hope everybody learned a lot. I know we're going to learn a lot more on culture in February 10th. A special thank you to Bill Montgomery in the River, and to Becca and to Megan. I really appreciate all you guys, and I thought you did a great job, and appreciate your time.
Awesome.
Thank you. It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you guys.
Have a great day.
All right. Bye.
Bye.